Hey, boys and girls, it's me, Mrs. Caper. Did you know that milk is magical? Today's lesson is all about dairy cows, and the product that dairy cows give us, milk. We're going to talk about 3 ways that milk is magical. And what I mean by magical is it's extraordinary, it's surprising, it's good for you. Let me tell you a couple of things about dairy cows before we get started with our 3 magical facts about dairy and dairy cows. First of all, I want you to know that there are different types of cows. Not all cows are used for dairy. In fact, I'm going to show you 2 types of cows. This first one is a beef cow, and it is a beef cow because it gives us meat. Its body is shaped like a rectangle, and you can see it has lots of muscles. This cow is a dairy cow, and this cow has a body that is shaped like a trapezoid, and that just means that you can remember it's a dairy cow because the trapezoid seems to run downward, and milk has to flow down. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Now, another thing you need to know before we get started is there are lots of different types of dairy cattle. There are Holsteins, and that's probably what you're used to seeing mostly. Those are the black and white cows that you see out in the field. But there are also Jersey cows, Guernseys, milking shorthorn, Ayrshires, and even brown Swiss that produce milk. Different colors, different spots, all producing dairy for us. Now, here's something else you need to know. All dairy cows are female. Yep, that's right. The females are the only ones who can produce milk. And a female cannot give us milk until it's had its first calf. Now, this female cow is milked for about 10 months until it's time for her to take a break. And then she has another calf and she's milked a little bit longer. And then she takes a break and she has another calf. And you can see how that goes. Now that you know that dairy cows produce milk. They have a trapezoid-shaped body. They are all female. All can look a little bit different. And they all have to have a calf before they produce milk. I'm going to give you your first magical fact. The first magical fact about dairy and dairy cows is that dairy cows eat grains and grasses and, turn that grain and grass into milk. Now, how does that happen? Well, dairy cows have to eat a lot of food. They eat about 100 pounds of food a day. Well, that would look like us eating 3 big baskets of apples. That's 100 pounds of apples. Now, remember, they eat grasses and grains, but 100 pounds of food in a day. And they have to drink. They drink 25 to 50 gallons of water each day. That's like a bathtub full of water. So they eat a lot. They drink a lot. In fact, most of their day awake is spent eating. It's kind of like you getting up in the morning and starting your eating and eating all the way until school's out. About 6.5 to 7 hours of your day spent just eating. Now, all of that food has to be digested. And once that food is digested, it becomes milk. But let's talk a little bit more about how that happens. It doesn't happen in an instant. It takes about 2 days for a female cow, dairy cow, to turn her food into milk. You see, it has to go through a lot of chambers in the cow's stomach. Now, you heard me right. 1 stomach, 4 chambers, and each one of them has a special job. I've got a video for you that I'm going to show that tells a little bit more about the jobs of each one of these stomachs. But now it makes sense, right? That it takes 2 days for her to turn the food into milk because it has quite a process to go through.
Animals. This means they have one large stomach with 4 different compartments. A cow begins by chewing her food. She swallows and it travels into the first two compartments. These are the rumen and reticulum. This is a big water tank. The food moves from side to side and it gets soft. Now, the cow burps up the food, she regurgitates, and chews it for a second time. We call this chewing her cud. This enables the cow to digest foods that people can't eat, like hay and cottonseed hulls. She now swallows her cud, and these smaller pieces move to the third and fourth compartment, the omasum and the abomasum. This special digestive process allows cows to produce delicious and naturally nutritious milk.
The average cow produces 6 to 7 gallons of milk each day. That's right here. And that is the same as 96 to 112 glasses of milk each day for you and me. So not only is the cow busy eating and drinking and digesting, but also producing milk. Now, where does all that milk go? Well, cows have something called an udder, and that is storage for their milk. And as the day goes on and the milk is being produced, the udder begins to fill up. The udder can hold up to 10 gallons of milk. And so that can get kind of uncomfortable for the cow. So the cows are milked 2 to 3 times a day, emptying out the storage so that more can be made. Now, a long time ago, farmers milked by hand. Did you know that 6 cows can be milked in an hour by hand if you're really good at it? But now we have milking machines that can milk 100 cows in an hour. Now, does that hurt the cow? Does it really feel good or does it feel bad? Well, milking does not hurt the cow. Hooking up to the machine actually feels the same as a baby sucking its thumb. And cows love it when they can give all of their milk and make room for more. It feels good for them. Number 2. Magical fact. Dairy cows have been providing humans with nutritious milk for thousands of years. This is artwork from a tomb in Egypt, and it shows a man getting milk from his cow. Now, in the early 1600s, when many immigrants were moving to America, they brought their cows on the boat with them from Europe. Can you imagine sailing on a boat across the ocean with your cows? But they needed those cows because when they got to the new land, they needed to supply their families with meat and dairy products to survive until they could figure out how to establish a farm that could produce food. Well, it wasn't until the late 1800s that cattle breeds were developed just for dairy purposes. So, like I said at the beginning, there are beef cattle and dairy cattle. And these kids that you can see right here are milking by hand. This is before the machines were invented, and that was their daily chore. Now, not just once, but remember, 2 to 3 times each day, those cows had to be milked. There was no vacation. Now, modern dairy farming began in the 1900s, and this made things a little easier. In rural America, milk and milk products were made mostly for home and local use. That means farmers got milk to feed their own families. But eventually, populations of people moved to the cities, and fewer people lived on the farms and produced their own food. And so it became really important for the dairy farmers to produce large amounts of dairy products so that people could have them even if they lived in a city. You know, there were business people and doctors and lawyers and nurses and lots of people working somewhere other than a farm. And so farmers began to figure out ways that they could get milk quickly, safely, and deliver it to those who were working in cities so that they could have quality dairy milk just like everyone else. Now, today, dairy farming looks quite different than what it once did. You can see here that many families work to produce cattle that give us lots of milk. There are veterinarians and farmers and families who all work together to keep cows safe and healthy so that we can have dairy products that are safe and make us healthy. Now, the third magical fact today is dairy cows provide milk that is used to make thousands of different dairy products. Yes, thousands. Not only do we get delicious milk from dairy cattle, but we also can make butter, cheese, and did you know when I said thousands of different products, cheese alone has over 1,800 types. Wow. Ice cream. Think about how many different types of ice cream you've had. Yogurt, condensed milk, that is a thick milk that's sweet, and dried milk. You can take the moisture out of milk and it leaves you with a powder. And when you're ready to make more milk, you can add water back and make milk again. It lasts a little longer than regular milk. Each year, U.S. dairy farmers provide milk to make more than 1 billion pounds of butter, 7 billion pounds of cheese, and 1 billion gallons of ice cream. Now, see all this ice cream over here? The average American, so most Americans, eat 23.2 quarts of ice cream each year. And we also love cheese. We eat about 31 pounds of cheese each year. Now, can you remember the 3 magical facts about dairy? Think back. Number 1, cows change grains and grasses into milk. Number 2, dairy and dairy cows have been around for thousands of years. And number 3, dairy cows provide us with milk that can be made into thousands of different dairy products. This is a story called Kiss the Cow, about a little girl who had to milk a cow and maybe kiss a cow, by Phyllis Root and Will Hillenbrand. Mama May lived where the earth met the sky, and her house was as wide as the prairie. Well, it needed to be. Mama May had so many children she couldn't count them all. Among Mama May's children was one called Annalisa. She wasn't the youngest, and she wasn't the oldest, but she was the most curious and the most stubborn. Every day, Annalisa followed Mama May as she carried her 2 shiny milk pails to the meadow where she kept Luella, her magic cow with the beautiful brown eyes and bright curving horns. Every day, Annalisa heard Mama May sing to Luella, "Lovely Luella, your milk never fails. My children are hungry, so please fill our pails." Every day, Annalisa saw Luella's warm, sweet milk flow into shiny pails until Mama May sang, "Thank you, Luella, my children shall eat cheese fresh and yellow, milk warm and sweet." And every day, Annalisa saw Mama May kiss Luella right on the end of her velvety brown nose. "Ugh," said Annalisa. "Imagine kissing a cow." Every day, Mama May carried her pails of milk home to feed her hungry children. One pail of milk they drank for breakfast. The other pail of milk Mama May heated and salted and pressed into cheese for the children's supper. Cheese so fresh it squeaked between their teeth. Every day, Annalisa wondered what would it be like to milk a magic cow. The more she wondered, the more curious she grew. And the more curious she grew, the more Annalisa just had to know. Finally, one day she said, "I want to milk Luella." "Never you mind about milking Luella," said Mama May. "If you upset her, she'll never give milk again. And then what would we do?" But Annalisa made up her mind. She took a little bucket and slipped off alone to the meadow. Just like Mama May, Annalisa sang, "Lovely Luella, your milk never fails. My children are hungry, so please fill our pails." Luella's milk flowed in Annalisa's little bucket until she sang, "Thank you, Luella, my children shall eat cheese fresh and yellow, milk warm and sweet." Now, this wasn't exactly true, of course, but magic words are magic words. And true or not, they worked. But did Annalisa kiss Luella right on the end of her soft, silky nose? She did not. And the next day, Luella would not give milk at all, no matter how many times Mama May sang her magic song. It didn't take Mama May long to guess what had happened. "Annalisa," she cried, "have you been bothering Luella?" "All I did was milk her with my little bucket," said Annalisa. "And did you remember to kiss the cow?" asked Mama May. "Me? Kiss a slobbery, bristly cow?" cried Annalisa. "You must kiss the cow to make sure she gives milk again," said Mama May. "Never," cried Annalisa, and she wouldn't. That day the children ate scraps of bread without milk for breakfast. "Now will you kiss the cow?" asked Mama May. "Never," said Annalisa. "No kiss, no milk." That night the children ate crusts of bread without cheese for supper. "Now will you kiss the cow?" asked Mama May. "Never," said Annalisa. "No kiss, no milk, no cheese." The next day, Mama May's house was full of hungry, crying children. The hungry children crowded around Annalisa. There were so many children, they crowded her right out of the house and up the hill to the meadow. "Milk," they begged. "Cheese," they pleaded. "Now will you kiss the cow?" asked Mama May. "Never," cried Annalisa. "Never, never, never." "Moo," said Luella, putting her nose in Annalisa's face. "Ugh," said Annalisa. But then she looked into Luella's beautiful brown eyes and wondered, what would it be like to kiss a cow? The more she wondered, the more curious she grew. And the more curious she grew, the more Annalisa just had to know. There was only one way to find out. "Please kiss the cow," said Mama. Said Annalisa. But she scrunched up her eyes, bunched up her face, and kissed Luella. Luella smelled of fresh hay and sunshine and clover. Her nose felt silky and warm and dry. Mama May sang her magic song. Luella's milk began to flow. The children cheered, and Annalisa felt so fine. She kissed the cow again. The end. What was your favorite part? Would you kiss a cow? Welcome back to our hands-on portion of Magic Milk. Remember, milk is magic because the cow eats grasses and grains and turns those grasses and grains into milk that you and I can drink and use. The second magic fact was that milk has been around for thousands of years. We even found out that cows traveled on ships over to this new land with their immigrant friends. And we know that milk can be turned into thousands of different types of products. That's pretty magical. Now we're going to do a magic milk experiment. So here's what you need. You need 2% or whole milk. You need some dishwashing liquid. You need food coloring. And any number of colors is fine. The more colors, the better, but it's no big deal if you don't. And you need a Q-tip. You might need a paper towel to clean up too. And you definitely need a shallow dish or bowl will work to pour your milk on. Okay, are you ready? Magic milk. Here's what you do. Take some milk, and I would say about a cup of milk. And I'm just going to pour a little bit in here. What you want to do is you want to cover the base or the bottom of your bowl or dish just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. There's just a little bit of milk in there, but it covers the bottom. In fact, if I were to stick my finger in there, you could see it's not very deep at all. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my food coloring and I'm going to put a drop or two of each color in the center of my milk. So I'm going to put, there's 2 reds, and I'm going to put 2, more than 2 yellows. That kind of ran out of there. And boys and girls, this can get kind of messy, so ask for some help from an adult. Always put a lid on your food coloring. It is very, very permanent, or stays for a long time, and it can make a real stained mess, so be careful. And then I'm going to put a couple drops of green in the middle. Okay, so I've got all 4 of my colors. Can you see all of that? Okay, now those are just floating. They're not moving, they're just staying right there. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my Q-tip, and I'm going to take a little bit of dish soap. Now, I could just drop my dish soap in the middle, but I'm going to put a little dish soap on a lid that I have here or in a small container, and I'm going to roll my Q-tip in that dish soap, okay, till it's coated. And then I'm going to take my Q-tip that's full of dish soap, and I'm going to put it right in the middle of my, of my milk. What just happened? I'm just going to leave it there for a minute. Look at what's happening. Are you getting all of that? All of those colors changing and swirling. There's movement in my milk, isn't there? I'm not moving my Q-tip, but the milk seems to be moving, and the colors are swirling and changing. And the longer I leave it there, the more movement and changing that there is. It's almost like those colors are pouring out of the tip of my Q-tip. But remember, I just had soap on my Q-tip. Now we're starting to clear out a little bit. So now I'm going to pick up my Q-tip. Oh, look at that. And I'm going to move it over here. I have a lot of blue. Let's see what happens over here. So there goes that blue. Are you thinking about what's happening? If you were doing this as an experiment, you could draw what you saw before and then draw what you now see. I'm going to put it over here near the edge. Now I can do this over and over again as long as there's soap on my Q-tip. And I'm going to continue to see lots of changes in my milk. Now, would I want to drink this milk? Probably not. Lots of food coloring in it and soap, and I wouldn't want that. I'm going to try pushing on the edge here. Now, can you see how things are kind of slowing down? My dish soap is not as effective, probably because it's almost gone. What if I added, I always have all kinds of what ifs. What if I added a little more dish soap to my Q-tip and I put it in again? Let's see what would happen. Nope, not as much movement. I wonder what's happening. Well, boys and girls, here's what's happening. Well, you might be wondering, how does all that work? I've got a really quick explanation that may or may not help you understand what's happening. Milk has lots of different molecules inside of it. It has water molecules, fat molecules, and protein molecules. Now, the water molecules inside of the milk have positive charges and negative charges. The fat has no charges, and the protein, look at that, is very complicated, and it has positive and negative charges. Now, the water right here, you can see, has that negative charge, and that fat, remember, no charges, and that protein has lots of positive and negative charges. So what are these blues? Well, the blues are detergents, the detergent, the actual dishwashing liquid that we put in, and that has a negative charge. On the opposite end, it has no charge, kind of like the fat. Now, what happens when the detergent is dipped down inside of that milk is that everything seems to go crazy. The negative charge on the end of the detergent is drawn to the positive charge on the water. Negatives love positives. And so they bump into each other. The detergent then bumps into the proteins, and the positive and the negative attract each other. Meanwhile, the fats that have no charge and the end of the detergents that have no charge don't interact a whole lot at all. In fact, they kind of repel each other. So inside of this milk, you're seeing lots of bumping and bouncing around of the fat, the water, the protein, and the detergent, and their positive and negative charges attracting and repelling each other. That's why you have so much movement.